Romulus, the founding father of the great empire of Rome. The date that historians put down on the founding of Rome is 753 BC. So stories have obviously evolved and got a bit muddled in all these years. But the one myth that has really stuck is that Romulus and his twin brother Remus were pretty much thrown away as babies, but they were found by a she wolf who nurtured them and kept them alive. Now, that was the only one thing that I ever knew about Romulus and Remus. And I also vaguely knew about the fact that Romulus is said to have killed Remus at the time that Rome was founded. So the story of the wolf looking after the babies did not seem very credible to me, but overall I thought with or without the wolf, Romulus must have been a great man. Now, not only is the birth of Remus and Romulus connected to this very well-known myth, but probably the lesser-known myth, and I'm saying lesser-known because I wasn't aware of it, is that there is a myth surrounding the death of Romulus as well. The story says that one day, after 40 years of being a king of Rome and the surrounding areas, Romulus one day suddenly vanished and got taken into heaven because he was always a god. The funny thing is that even the historians who attempted to write about Romulus's life were from more than 2000 years ago. And even they attempted to challenge the myths surrounding Romulus's birth and death. They believe that it's possible that he grew so powerful and in the end he wasn't a very nice person either, that all his officials got a little bit frustrated with him and got together and killed him off and then hid his body. They also tried to explain the story of the wolf by saying that it may not have been a wolf but a prostitute that looked after the two babies, and the language back then referred to prostitutes as she-wolves. While that may or may not be true, I personally find that explanation to also not have a lot of weight. Because here's how the story goes, that the king of the land at that time threw his elder brother out of the kingdom. And when the elder brother's daughter had twin boys, he was afraid that the boys might grow up and take away his kingdom and then ask those twin babies to be thrown away in the river. Now, Remus and Romulus, they grew up in a shepherd's family. They were said to be very healthy and strong, and in addition to being a shepherd, they also would be prone to fighting local bandits and take away the loots and redistribute it back to their clans. It was a complicated process, but back then this may have been the way of life. Now, one day when they had grown up over some dispute, they miraculously just met their so-called grandfather who had been ousted by the king. And the grandfather is said to have had no problem in recognizing these grown-up men as his grandkids that were thrown away as babies. Now, that story just seems so very coincidental that I almost feel like they might have just been sons of the shepherd's family who took a convenient story and took it to their advantage. The king who was ousted may also not have had any objections in taking this story because these are two strong boys and they were willing to fight for him and give him back his throne. Which, as the story goes, they eventually did. They killed the king and put his brother, who had been ousted before, back to the throne. Now, the sad thing is, at this point, apparently, sibling rivalry kicked in big time. So instead of laying back and enjoying their so-called grandfather's kingdom, at this point, they are said to have ventured out to build a city of their own. And instead of focusing on building the city, they decided to first focus on who would be the ruler of that city. Now, there was plenty of hills and barren land to go around, so I'm not too sure why they decided to fight over this matter at that time. So not only did they fight over this, but over this fighting, Romulus simply killed Remus in one sudden stroke. If that story is true, then I did feel a little bit sad for the brothers because it just seemed unnecessary and kind of a stupid decision. Now, a lot of people also challenge the very fact that there could have been this one person called Romulus. It is said that as Rome started to grow in power, they needed a backstory, and it was a good backstory to have a founder of Rome who was also known to be a god. So people around those times may have simply pulled some word-of-mouth stories and completely created this character called Romulus. The historians who later on documented the history of this character, they don't speak very highly of this character. It appears that the place that he built up which was called Rome, may have not been like a huge establishment. It could have been more like a village of a few huts. It seems he welcomed thugs and criminals to fill up his city because he needed some people to live in this city. And there is also a story that because no women would voluntarily come and live in this city, they went out and kidnapped women to come and become wives of people that lived in the city. Overall, I do think though that the lives of people back then was pretty intense. Whether Romulus and Remus were real people or not, their stories must be based on the lives of people and how they had to live back then. So those are the myths and stories and facts and history, whatever is available around the characters of Romulus, who founded the city of Rome, and his unfortunate brother, if he existed, who he had to kill in order to be the ruler of that place. That's all for today. Catch you next time. Thanks for listening. Bye.